Welcome to the S.E.M podcast. Once again, Jack and Zach are back today, and our guest coming to us over from the UK is David Cain. David, how are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you. Yes, and thanks for having me. It's appreciated. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time to interview lowly old me.
Oh, hardly that, I'm certain. And we were talking about it before, but tell us what part of the world you're calling from.
Well, I'm from Bolton, but I grew up in Manchester. Bolton is about 20 miles northwest of Manchester, if you know where that is. Okay. So in England, of course.
Awesome. Love it. Well, we talked about previously that you've been listening to the podcast. You understand the format. We'll talk pre-mission and your story getting your call. Yeah. We'll skip over post-mission and talk about life since then, and then we'll go back through and reminisce about Scotland. So I'll let you have the floor, David.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. So I guess, well, I should start really. As I've mentioned before, I'm from Manchester, the centre of Manchester, a place called Stretford, which is near, if you've heard of Manchester United, you've heard of them. Not a great football team. I don't support Manchester United. In fact, no one from Manchester supports Manchester United.
Is that right? I want to hear the truth behind this. Please share.
They're all from London and outside of Manchester. In fact, Manchester United aren't even based in Manchester. They're based in Trafford, which is a borough over. So they can't even be called Manchester United. So, I believe you got Craig Day on after me. He's a Man United supporter. You know what I mean? I'm not. I'm a Manchester City supporter. You only see me in Manchester, so wanted to make that a big thing there. But I attended the Stretford ward. I lived in Stretford pretty much all my life up until about 5 years ago. It's about 2 miles south of the centre of Manchester, so I'm about as Mancunian as you can get. I don't know if you've seen Oasis or the Stone Roses and all that. Yeah, our kid in Manfred and all that.
There you go. Love
it. I'm about as manky as you can get without having like long stylized hair or a Parker or shouting mad for it. Everyone, basically. I've already mentioned that I follow the champions of England, Manchester City. It's going to be another title for us at the end of the season as well. So excited to get some more silverware coming to the right side of Manchester for a change. I'll stop with the football sort of thing. It's pretty big over here. Big deal.
Maybe they'll do something in the Champions League for the first time this year.
Yeah. If the referees aren't going to cheat us out of it,
Sorry. If you've listened to stuff about me, I'm a Liverpool supporter, and so seeing Manchester, anything Manchester side of the world is hard to see them succeed. But they are. City has been a good side for a long time. So anyway, we'll get back to that. We'll get away from there.
I digress. Sorry about that. I think I should probably start off from saying, a lot of the previous guys that you've had on are all still active in the church. I think it's important for you to let me know that I haven't attended church meetings for quite some time. I'm not here to badmouth the church. I'm not here to. It's not that I don't appreciate my mission or what the church has provided to in my life. But it's kind of when a former guest sort of who was on this show reached out to me. I felt it was like I had valuable things that I could give to this podcast still, and my experiences are just worthwhile. I think it's
what we've been trying to tell people. Thank you.
Yeah, we really do. We appreciate that.
Well, thanks for having me on. I mean, you might be able to tell this from a bit of a different perspective now. Look, I'm as I said before, I'm not here to badmouth the church. I've had a really good life in the church. It's just that we digressed ways, and I'll probably get onto that a bit later. But like I say, I still have meaningful experiences that I can share as a returned missionary. Just but as maybe as a less active sort of member of the church. But I still believe in God. I still believe in Jesus Christ. And obviously he lived a wonderful, exemplary life, and did some of the most awesome, beautiful things known to man. So, you know, I still have a I suppose you call it a testimony or a witness of that. But you know, I still feel as if I should share my mission experiences, because to an extent it helps bring a sense of closure. Because and many missionaries would probably have a tendency to agree with me. They might look back with mixed feelings on the years that they served there, and that's certainly the case with me. You know, some good, some amazing, and some not so amazing experiences. But so that's that. So where do we go next?
Just talk about your experience in running up to your mission and getting your call.
Okay. So I served from July 2008 to July 2010. I'm 37 years of age now. So back then I'd served when I was 23 years of age. So that was, maybe a tiny bit late, to be honest with you. Comparatively now, where people are going away at 18 years of age. But to be honest with you, it wasn't a huge priority to me to serve when I was 19 years of age. You see, guys, I'm a musician, and I was in a band at the time, and that was the most important thing in my life at that particular time. You know, we were doing pretty well. I was getting noticed by people. I was popular. You know, when you're 19, that's kind of what you're after, isn't it? That's what you're about. Yeah. And that very much was a priority for me at the time as well. So I attended church, and I went to church quite a fair bit. You know, I was always active, and for one term or another, basically. However, when the band split in 2006, I wanted to pursue music education, and you know, I wanted to become a music teacher, basically. So I applied to go to university, and I got a place at a place called Salford. And don't worry, I'm building to the mission call. Okay,
you're good. We're with you.
Where's he going with this massive tangent? No. This. Oh my goodness, where do you get that mug? I've got to stop. Where do you get that mug?
From my wife for Christmas. She hooked me up.
You should sell those on the site.
Oh man. Oh, the possibilities. Mine's not customized, but you know, Jack's repping for us.
Sorry, anyway, I'll get back to it. Can you send me one of those, please? I'll send you the money. You're missing out a trick here, guys. You're missing out a trick. Anyway, so as I was saying, I digress. You're going to get a lot of this. So I got accepted for a university course, graduate year in University of Salford, which was pretty close to where I was living at the time in Stretford. And it was one of the best music courses in the UK. So I wanted to take this opportunity, you know, with both hands, basically. So, you know, I was thrilled to I've gotten a place. I began my first year in 2007. Now, the ward which I attended, which was the Stretford ward at the time, was then the young single adult ward for the Manchester stake. And, you know, Manchester is, you may or may not know, but it's a big student city. You know, attracts students from all over the world. You know, we have a lot of students coming in to attend meetings, etc. New couples and all this sort of stuff. Some of these guys, if you know what I mean, some of these were female students. Some of them were, you know, had, you know, what we would call a sweet spirit about them. And, you know, obviously I wanted to make an impression with these young ladies. So naturally I came to church a bit more, attended more meetings. I got involved more to impress the young ladies. you know, right, guys, you were sort of like hold a hand and walk them through the moonlight and kiss them on the mouth, right?
That's right.
That's right, and that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do at that particular time. So I wanted to pursue that. So at that particular time, my dad was actually the bishop of the Stretford ward, and the stake president was also a close friend of mine. And my family, he was a member of the Stretford ward too. He was called Sean Roberts. He was so he approached me one Sunday morning, noticed obviously that I was attending church a bit more regularly. And he approached me one Sunday during my first year of my degree and asked me if I'd taken any thought to serve mission. So by that time, I was 22 years of age. It was sort of like in the first year of a 3-year course, and I thought that it was unlikely. as you know, as I had a desire to finish my degree. I thought that sort of time was over. You know, there wasn't any window of opportunity now. That sort of boat sailed, so to speak. So I remember in this meeting, Sean, he was the stake president, he asked me, and I remember he says, well, why don't you see if you can do it after you finish your first year? Take a gap year or gap 2 years, your 2-year gap. And I was like, oh, that was an interesting thought. I thought, well, yeah, it's highly unlikely that they'll accept me to have a 2-year gap after the first year of my studies. But, you know, I said, yeah, sure. If they allow me to do it, I'll seriously consider it. On the provision, obviously, that I'll be allowed to take the 2 years off during like a summer break, so I can continue my studies after I got back, because that was what I wanted to do. So I never thought the university would actually go free. And I said, yes, we'll allow you to take 2 years off.
Wow.
So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going on a mission then.
That's quite a story. Wow.
Yeah. So that's where basically I sent my call for my papers. Like I say, I went a bit late, and you know, I asked the administration team. So you know, it all sort of like went through really quickly within the space of a couple of months, and so I was shocked and excited. You know, me, you know, potentially serving a mission and could become a reality basically. And I remember receiving my mission call. Now, previously, I'd been to Scotland a couple of times, just during New Year and stuff like that. So I didn't want to speak any other language. I know a tiny bit of French, not conversational French, just, you know, like I've watched movies and, you know, and stuff like that. I think I could speak, you know, I can't speak it now. I won't be able to do it. So I wanted to speak somewhere. I wanted to go to a different country. I didn't want to go to Leeds because, you know, no one from Manchester wants to serve in Leeds. And I didn't really want to go to London either. So I think it was a good call, basically. I wanted to go to a different country. That box was ticked. And I wanted to go somewhere which spoke English, which, you know, I can sort of half tick that box because some places in Scotland, you just don't know what they're talking about, basically. So yeah, that's basically how I got my mission call. It was a bit long-winded, that, wasn't it? Sorry about that.
Oh, that was good. I didn't know they would allow gap 2 years. That is pretty interesting.
It was a shocker to me. But, you know, they said, you know, I was doing pretty well at the time. They said, you know, your grades are good. Yeah, we like you. You know, yeah, if you take a test, an examination test on when you come back, we'll allow you to continue your studies, which was, you know, I've unheard of. I've never heard of that before. But like I said, my grades were pretty good, so I can't see why not. So, but when they said yes for 2 years, I was just like, well, got to do something now. I guess I'm going.
Nice.
Yeah, your hand was a little bit stayed in that point, right? Where you're just like, well, I can't play it any other way now.
My hands are tied. Hands are tied. No, it was. I saw an opportunity, and I thought, you know, obviously it's a unique opportunity to serve a mission, and you know, I was a bit curious as well to see what had happened. And obviously, as I mentioned before, I wanted to impress the ladies, guys. You know what I mean? Nothing impresses the ladies quite like the word RM after your name.
There you go.
That's true. It's very true. All right, that's a good segue. So take us right to July of 2010. Since you've been home, what have you been up to since then, David?
I've actually made notes, so if you don't mind.
You're good.
So obviously, since I got back from a mission, I completed my degree. That was a music degree, popular music and recording. I wanted to become a teacher. I became a teacher for a bit, but decided to change my mind after I worked at some schools. And so I retrained about, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago now. My master's degree in real estate and commercial property management. And now I'm a chartered surveyor. Been so for 3 years now, part of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, which is nice. a posh word to say that you're accredited, basically. So cool. It is quite cool. I enjoy my job quite a lot. I manage a large portfolio of commercial properties like offices and things such as that on behalf of a private equity firm. in the northwest of England. So I've got 4 centres, and I've got a couple of members of staff in each. I kind of just go between all 3 of them, kind of thing. So that keeps me busy during the day. I love my work, but my main love is still music, guys. You're never going to get that out of me. I mean, and I can't. So I also run a very successful music events company as well on the side, called Escape Music. That's done better than we ever thought. We've got festivals and all over the UK now. That's really taken since lockdown as well. That takes up quite a bit of my time. I've got a studio, a music studio as well. I've just added 2, so spent $2,000 on this massive piece of equipment, kind of thing. Like, oh gosh, well, it's a hobby of a lifetime, kind of thing. And I really love doing it, and I don't care if no one's listening. I'm going to do it until the day I die, basically. So that's. I'm not married or anything like that. I do have a girlfriend. We've been going out for about 7 months now. She's great. She's currently away. She works at sea. So, for months at a time. She's a hydrographical surveyor, so she works on like oil rigs and stuff like that.
Wow.
I thought I'd miss them all.
Oh boy.
Hopefully she's not going to listen to this. I love you, Alice. Miss you, babe. See you soon.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, so that's what I've been basically doing since, and bits and pieces and stuff like that. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Up to this day, I'm still doing that. Still digging away at the music thing. But it's a thankless task. To try and get people interested in your music is, when you're 37 years of age, is a bit whack. You know what I mean? But keep on trying. I've got to live the dream. You know what I mean? I've got to reach for the stars. So you know what I mean? And I'm never going to give up. I don't care how popular I am or I'm not, basically. But yeah. My music training got to go somewhere, you know what I mean?
If people want to find your music, where should they go? You do some promotion here.
Oh, right, okay. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to promote my stuff, guys. First and foremost, just type up my name, David Hall Cain, into sound. Well, you'll find me online. Basically, it's got a lot of my old stuff on there, but there's going to be new stuff coming soon. So keep an eye out for it, and don't be too harsh with your comments. You know what I mean? Because I'll just kick you off. Just kick you off. Don't hear it. If it's negative, guys, just don't do negativity with my music. You know what I mean? Just it cuts me too close to the core. You know what I mean? Anyway,
I can understand that. I love it. All right, so take us back to July of 2008. You literally drove up the road to the MTC in Preston, I'm imagining. I'm sure that was a little different.
Yeah, it's 15 minutes drive away from where I live.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, so it wasn't exactly like I was really in my mission frame of mind when I went there. As you're aware, the MTC is pretty much located on the same site as the Chorley Temple. It's located about 20 minutes drive from where I lived. From where I live now, and about 30 minutes away from Stretford, where I used to live. So I didn't have, obviously, very far to travel to get there. I went up with my whole family.
Wow.
And they left me at the MTC. I was just like, just go. And I was like, it was a bit of a heartbreaking ending, you know what I mean? Because I didn't think they were going to leave. I was like, just leave, just go. I'll talk to you. And obviously I didn't see them again for 2 years after that. But yeah, it was a bit of a strange farewell. But I was excited to go into the MTC, to be honest with you. It was another strange thing about it being very, very close to my house. And you remember me saying that I mentioned before that I had a lot of students at my ward, the Stretford ward. Another weird thing about me being at the MTC that was, I guess, unique to me was that I knew pretty much all of the teachers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so most of them went to my ward. And I hung around in YSA.
There you go.
little bit of a reverse role there, a little bit. That's crazy.
So I was automatically just like, oh, right, they've got power over me now. So yeah, I hung around with them on the church activities. Jonathan Spencer, I knew very well. Sam Rushworth, Joe Cook, Joe McMahon, Chris Goebel, all those guys. You probably won't know them, but they were the lot that trained us. I didn't need all of them. The only one I didn't really know was Chris Patterson, who was like, the head teacher, basically, if you will.
That's the one we do know.
That's the one we do know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he lives close to me as well, you know what I mean? So, as you can imagine,
I'm sure.
Yeah, as you can imagine, it was a bit difficult for us to see these guys as like teachers, kind of over me. When I first got there, I was calling them by the first names.
I'm sure.
That's great.
A few of them, one or two like let me off kind of thing, and one or two of them corrected me. I remember, and reminded me, that I was now a missionary. As like Elder Cain. I remember Jonathan Spencer particularly, who was actually one of the ones I was closer to, gave me a bit of one of my first of many mission rebukings. And he said, "Look, Elder Cain, I know that me and you we're friends or are friends and stuff like that, but and we go to the same ward, and your dad basically is my bishop. But while you're in the MTC, you'll refer to me as Brother Spencer," and I couldn't help it. I just burst out laughing. Got so mad. Got so angry. I just cracked up, but he wasn't joking. He was serious and got like angry and sort of stuff. But I soon learned. Joe McMahon, I knew as well. He was a really nice guy. So what I'm trying to say is the MTC was one of my favourite parts of the entire mission. I absolutely loved it in there. I thought it was great. You know what I mean? We had great food. Was it Luca, who was the guy that did the chef? He was fantastic. The Italian guy. He wasn't a member, and we'd all try to see if we could convert him, but he's had that a million times. He's like, "Oh, not interested, guys," and all that sort of stuff. But we were looked after there. President Sorensen was our president, the MCC president. Like I say, the facility itself was great and really well managed, I felt. We had lots of football on the Semple grounds, and obviously they were my friends, a lot of the teachers. So and I was only 10-15 minutes away from home, so it wasn't really like a bit of a weird vacation. Not really sort of like in mission frame of mind at that particular moment in time. That's like, oh yeah, this is a nice vacation. This is what my mission is going to be like. My first companion was a guy called Nathan Clough. He was from Provo, Utah. He was quite a quiet, pleasant, sincere, lovely guy, really. I remember, doing my first companionship inventory with him, as a training module with him. And to be honest with you, I found that aspect of being a missionary quite challenging at first. Because, I fully expected to work hard. I mean, it was all about working hard, but I didn't really like that whole idea of that was a target for constant chastisement. You know what I mean? It wasn't cool with me. That didn't really sit well with me. Maybe because I was prideful, or I still am prideful, or whatever. But at first I fought against it. I was like, no. This is not about me. This is not about me, guys. This is about me working. So let's get back onto that, shall we? And all this sort of stuff. But I didn't like that, primarily because I didn't like the power dynamic it left me with. And secondly, I wasn't interested in what people saying to me, basically. You know what I mean? Because that's all it was to me. It's like, oh, this is your opinion, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, unless I was breaking mission rules, which I wasn't that type of missionary. I'm not that type of guy. Especially the only option I was seeking was, ultimately the right thing in God's eyes. You know what I mean? Rather than what your interpretation of what God's eyes were. You know what I mean? And I constantly quote the scripture. So, Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. So that was in my head when I went into the MCC, and when I was constantly getting corrected. I was just like, you're missing the point here, guys. But that was just my opinion. You know what I mean?
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, well, that's
I truly can.
That's just my view of it. I mean, no one has to agree with me. It's just the way that I saw things personally. Look, feedback in general in life is important, but I think, and a lot of the struggles I had in my mission was, it felt like I wasn't treated like a human being, but like a problem. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of missionaries fell, way short of the mark, in my opinion, especially like a few of the mission leaders. I'm not going to get into who, but I just felt like missionaries used their position as a power flex. rather than like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to help somebody. You know what I mean? And learn it. And those, I mean, that was quite a bit of a shock when I originally got into the mission, that there was that sort of power dynamic in, because I thought it was going to be like a bit of a nurturing kind of loving kind of, encouraging everyone. And it was, when I got there, I realized it was very, very opposite of that, basically. But anyway, I'll get into that. I love the MTC, but I was very anxious about heading up to Scotland to do the work. So that was the MTC. Lovely experience. But going on the mission, that was a bit of a different matter. You know what I mean? It completely changed when as soon as I basically turned up to the mission and met up with President Frederick.
Yeah. And we've already heard from some of the missionaries that were kind of in your era of how there was quite a culture that was already there when you were coming in. So I'm really curious to hear more about your experience there.
It was hammer time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I remember someone once telling me, "Oh, hammer time, that's like a MC Hammer song or something like that." I was thinking it was a cool thing. I was like, "What, hammer time?" Yeah, but no, come to realise that meant something very different in the Scotland Edinburgh Mission. I mean, I arrived probably just after it was phasing out, but there's very much still strong elements within the mission of let's rebuke this person into feeling depressed or upset or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you that it's not a way to, in my eyes, it wasn't effective, because I understand I understand people trying to rebuke people to try and make them feel better, but not worse. You know what I mean? And I felt like there was quite a lot of that. There wasn't like, oh, let's do this to try and encourage them to do better. It was like, let's chastise this person so that they get upset and cry, basically. And let's, I honestly, I mean, I might sound a tad dramatic there, but I've heard instances where that was the case, and I didn't agree with it. I still don't agree with it. I don't think it's a way to encourage missionaries to do the work, and I don't think it's very effective either. But that was just a decision that was made because other missionaries were, goofing off or whatever, or not working properly. But like I say, I wasn't built for that. I was built to. I wanted to go out and work. I wanted to help people. I think I was doing it for the right reasons in most instances. My desire was good. I think going out there. I mean, I wanted to get the interest of girls and stuff like that. But I wasn't 100% innocent. I'm not going to lie to you there. But I think my reasons for going were good, but I was a bit disappointed when I got there. Anyway, I'll talk about when I arrived at the mission home. So we caught the train up to Edinburgh Waverley. I met up with President Frederick, and it was a bit of a shock to see how big he was. Initially, I was like, "Wow, this guy's an absolute mountain of a man," like he's been mentioned before. Yeah. I was a bit intimidated initially, but he's pleasant enough at first. First impression of him, he was, like I say, he was very large. I remember when we got there at Waverley, before he let us into the van, he's like, "Go and speak to 5 people, contact them at the station." I was like, wow. "Oh, this is like I'm on a mission. Let's go, go." So that's what we did. We got into eventually the mission home, and after I contacted 5 people at Waverley Station, and then off we popped in the mission van all the way through, driving at about 600 miles an hour through the streets of through the streets of Edinburgh. That was another thing on the mission. Like the missionaries would drive so fast, and I was like, "What is going on?"
We've heard that too.
If it was Elder Lucas, then I can understand why.
Well, I mean, that's going to be another thing that so many missionaries just like flagrantly abused. I heard a couple of people. In Christian Lucas's? He nearly got a ban because he was going like 100 odd miles an hour.
Yeah,
and he got caught. And then an apostle saw him getting arrested or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly. Yep.
Welcome to the S.E.M, boys.
Oh dear.
Anyway, so we got back in the mission home. I remember introducing myself to all the missionaries. very nice over dinner. And, the stick people sort of like, oh, where are you from? How are you doing? And stuff like that. It was dead nice. Food was great. I remember the assistant at the time was Jeremiah Johnson. He was on his last move. I think he was being moved out at that particular time. And he sort of coyly told me over dinner that he knew who I was. I was like, oh, how do you know who I was? And now I've got to rewind back because I've already mentioned I'm a musician. I sent a letter to address to President Frederick asking if I, because I'm a professional musician, I practice guitar every day. And I don't think it was too much of a request to ask if I could bring my guitar for, just practice for, 1 day a week on P days. Because otherwise I was scared that I was going to lose my ability to play or whatever. We're going to bring my acoustic, 1 hour a week practice on P day tops. So I wrote to President Frederick via a letter before my mission, sent it to him, and he read this letter out loud to a number of people in the mission home, including Elder Johnson. And I really wish that he wouldn't have done that. I felt like it was a letter just me requesting to me. I think it sort of took on a bit of a contradictory tone, to tell you the truth. I heard that he might have been taking the mick as well. So I caught wind of this while I was in the mission home, meeting him, and I was pretty livid that the mission president would do something like that. I was just say no to me in private and then move on. You know what I mean? So like I say, it was a matter between me and him. So straight from the word go, I had a bit of an issue against President Frederick, and I didn't really trust him, unfortunately. So, but I respected him, and I respected his power and his authority, and I was there to do what was told. Anyway, I was paired up with Jonathan Smith from Wolverhampton, mate. Super nice guy. He was super effective, organised missionary. He was obviously, he trained me for the first 6 weeks. He was on his last moves, so he talks about home a lot. What do they call it? Trunky. Yeah, getting trunky. Yeah. 100% home already in his head. I'm there at the finish line.
What area did you go to?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was Glasgow. I was in Mary Hill.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was my introduction to Scotland, going to a war zone, basically.
Yeah.
And with a guy that you imagine me being a greenie and the guy talking about home all the time as well. But him and me, we got on, and round where a lot of Mary Hill. Yeah, the ward was great. I had a couple of previous issues with overbearing missionaries. Like I say, we just finished Hammer Time. Basically, we were coming out of that. But I think that was just the culture of the mission at the time. And, the attitude that came from the top, to baptize. And that was very much, pushed quite heavily when I originally came out, especially during the first couple of weeks in the mission. Well, the first couple of months, actually. So I remember just after Hammer Time, it was during Hammer, or just after Hammer Time. I remember meeting the zone leaders. The zone leaders, my first encounter with my zone leaders. Oh, wow. So it was Ryan Blake and Tyson Bear, and they were my zone leaders. Now, I didn't even know what a zone leader was. I was aware that we had a district leader. I thought the district leader was below President Frederick. I thought the assistants were just like his little lackeys. And I thought that the zone, I didn't even know what a zone leader was. I wasn't aware of the power structure in the mission, is what I'm saying. So my introduction to Ryan and Tyson, they came round to our flat, and I tell you what, guys, they absolutely tore me apart. They literally, honestly, they were not nice. They went through all my things. all maybe corrected me. These like, oh yeah, this, that, and this and that. And, they're getting personal instances. And I was just like, who are these guys? Like, who are these guys? The people who come round. Well, I was a bit disgusted, to be honest with you. I was a bit disgusted, but it doesn't matter. I forgive them and stuff like that. But I was just shocked initially that was the culture of the mission. It's like, what, this is allowed. This is permitted for them to come round here, bully us, and leave. But yeah, it seemed like that was definitely the case. So I was a bit disgusted with the way they initially treated me. They seemed much more interested in flexing the power rather than getting to know me or make me feel comfortable or addressing any concerns. So after my rebuking, that was like the first major one that I got on the mission, and I was just out. So anyway, 6 weeks. That was my introduction to Glasgow or Ward. I was with, as I say, Jonathan for 6 weeks, and then he goes home. I get a new companion, Alan Slater, who was from Nottingham. He was a very different companion to Jonathan. I'd say a lot more laid back. Very funny guy. Obviously, he liked his football as well, even though his team was Bobbins. Bottom of the league, you know what I mean? Bottom right down there, bottom of the league, you know what I mean? You should get him on, actually. He's a good laughing. I really liked Alan. Really funny guy. We had a sort of similar sense of humour. We get along great and bounce off each other quite a bit, you know what I mean? But he was very hardworking, extremely focused. And, that was a great, really good example from this. So I had two fantastic missionaries to start off with. I couldn't have asked for any better missionaries. So during my time with Alan Slater, I'd been out for about 8 weeks at this point. The Bishop of Glasgow asked to bring sacrament to an elderly lady whose name I forget. I'm sorry, elderly lady. I think she had something like, she had issues, basically dementia, I think, or something like that. So this lady lived on one of the roughest estates in Maryhill. Back then, employed people would, go there to go collect the gyro, which is like, their benefits on from the post office on Mondays. And I remember, in particular, this particular area's post office on Monday morning, its queue stretched around the block. So, I could tell you it was a pretty rough area. Anyway, we're on our way to bring this lady sacrament, and it was during that time that as we were crossing the road that I was assaulted by this very, very angry gentleman. He broke my nose. He headbutted me in the face. Completely unexpected, uncalled for, and that happened 8 weeks in.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. So that was another. I won't say it was a blow. It didn't hurt or anything initially. It was just more of a shock. You know what I mean? 'Cause I don't know if you've ever broke your nose. I mean, the first concern was, oh no, my perfect nose is gone. You know what I mean? Like my looks, my hair, all this sort of stuff. I got it all, my blood all over my mission tie and all this sort of stuff. But obviously, word got around that I'd been assaulted across the mission. Elder Slater called President Frederick straight away, and so on. And obviously, news got around. News got around quite quickly that day that Elder Cain had got beaten up. you know what I mean? Across the mission. I remember President Frederick calling me actually about it, and I could tell he was trying to cheer me up. You know what I mean? Trying to sort of like me see the the positive side, which I really appreciated. But I felt like a lot of people weren't being very sensitive to the situation. You know what I mean? I felt like people were sort of like laughing at the fact that it happened rather than like, oh, you were all right or something like that. I just wasn't in the mood to sort of like say, oh yeah, tell us that story about how you got assaulted. You don't want to tell people that story over and over. It's not a positive thing that happened basically, but I don't know. I felt like I didn't connect with a lot of the mentality in the mission. You know what I mean? I felt it was like a, I don't know, maybe like a school or something like a felt like a I don't know, just like a bit of a sorority or something like that. You know what I mean? Kind of a bit of a weird sort of like militant sorority kind of, you know, religious sort of thing. You know what I mean? I wasn't really sort of into it, but I was into hard working. I think that was just the culture of the mission. To be honest with you, that was just, you know, every mission's got the culture, haven't they? And that was ours. I just think it wasn't very. I mean, yes, we got work done. You know what I mean? And we were effective. But I just felt like it wasn't very. How can I put it? Very caring when it came to certain things. You know what I mean? Or it was certain things were overlooked. Anyway,
Yeah.
I won't talk about that all the miserable stuff. But there was bad and there was good. I actually got a funny story with Elder Slater. I think you'll like this one. When I was serving with Elder Slater, obviously in Mary Hill, we would often go to the high-rise flats in the area, and these. I mean, I remember listening to Christian Lucas. These areas were marked with a skull and crossbones on the area map. And, you know, he might have mentioned that in an earlier podcast somewhere, but that didn't scare me and Elder Slater. No, sir. We'd go there all the time to see what was going on. You know, we weren't scared. We had God on our side, right? You know, what's there to be scared of? Anyway,
Wow.
when we went there, these flats were horrific. They were high rises. They're about 25 to 30 floors high, and there was we had a number of investigators at one time. I remember that one day, Elder Slater and me, we get up to get the lift on the bottom of the flat, and the doorway into the lift, there was like flowers and a little shrine there, and we're like, obviously we didn't know what it was about. Like, what on earth's this about? You know what I mean? Like, all these pictures of a young lady there. Anyway, being naive. Anyway, the concierge comes out and goes, "Oh, that's out of order, guys. But it's going to be back up and running pretty soon." And I'm like, "What happened?" He says, "Well, a lady was in that lift the other day and it malfunctioned. A lady unfortunately fell to her death." And me and Elder Slater were like, looked right at each other, and we said at exactly the same time, "Let's take the stairs."
Oh my goodness.
We climbed up all those stairs. I never went up. I never went in that lift ever again. And these are high flats. You know, people at the very top. You know what I mean? But it was like there was no way I was getting in those flats. Plenty of exercise during that particular time. But no floor, 30 floors, no problem. I'm not going. I'll take my chances with these stairs. Thank you very much. So
that's crazy. Goodness.
Yeah. That's it sounds crazy, but it's true. It is true. You talk to Elder Slater, you'll verify it. Anyway, eventually, with Elder Slater 6 weeks, moved from Mary Hill up to Dundee, the Liff Road ward. My companion was Brian Tusher. Dundee was a much nicer area than Glasgow, to be honest with you. And I was pretty much glad to be out of there. We also had a car, which is fantastic. Now I'm a really good driver, unlike some missionaries. Brian was from Rexburg, Idaho. He was an exemplary missionary. He was funny. He was scarily smart. He's gifted, and you know, he had a lot going for him. Still does have a lot going for him. If I had one criticism of him, I don't think he was a great people person. You know, I don't think he was great with other people and how they were feeling or what they were thinking and things such as that. I honestly think that I thought whilst I was serving with him, he would be able to serve more effectively if he was on his own. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he valued my opinion as a companion at all, really. I found at times he could be quite obstinate. And forgive me for saying this, Brian. You know what I mean? You're a lovely guy, but we didn't see eye to eye on some things. I felt he didn't care much about my ideas or my plans because his were always better. It's caused a bit of friction, as you can probably imagine, between us when we were planning, particularly, or determining what we wanted to do. I just felt like I had no input. and that wasn't really our companionship at all, really. I didn't really have a voice, so fair enough. We were companions for a long time as well. We were together for 4.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, how long am I going to be with him? I don't think he's not a bad person at all. I think he's a wonderful person. It's just, I think sometimes, when you're working really hard, and you want to do what's right, sometimes in your mind, what the right thing and what the other person's right thing can contradict. And you obviously sometimes you pray and you try and find a middle ground or something along those lines, or you seek what the Spirit's telling you or whatever. But I don't think, like I say, I don't think that process was very at the front during our companionship. But anyway, we did baptize a guy called Craig. I've got a photo of him there. There's can you see that? There's Craig, me, and Brian. So that was my first baptism on my mission. We were teaching him. He was a fantastic. He was a baker, actually. So obviously it was great when he used to bring us loads of bakery goods. I gained quite a lot of weight on the mission. I can tell you that. I was. I think I was a size 32 when I went out. When I came back, I was a size 38. I gained like 3 stone on my mission. I think a lot of people were probably similar to that. They fed us well,
that was me too. 3 stone.
3 stone, yeah. 3
2 stone for me.
2 stone. Gosh, I mean, it doesn't come off very easy, unfortunately, as well. You know what I mean?
No, it does not.
Yeah, but a lot of the time it was just like, I mean, not to diss Scottish cuisine, which is obviously the highest quality. No, it's all fried, isn't it? I mean, it's all fried. You remember heard of a munchie box? A munchie box. You ever have a munchie box? Oh my God. It's just all the rubbish that's left over from like the scrapings of like an abattoir or something like that. Let's deep fry it, lads. Let's put loads of salt and grease, and let's dip in it in brew, and let's put chips in there as well. Let's put like a week-old chicken. You know what I mean? And then we eat that as missionaries. Oh, this is great, wondering why we gained all this weight.
Oh yeah,
did that plenty. We had plenty of meals as well in the mission. Dundee was a great for member work. For inviting people around, it was a superb ward, like honestly fantastic. One of my favourite wards that I served in. So Brian left the area. I then had a new companion, Robert Yory, from Kent. His dad actually invented the show Thomas the Tank Engine. If you know that.
Oh, wow.
Starring Ringo Starr of the Beatles. So it's a kids show basically, but yeah, his dad actually invented that show. I know because I looked up afterwards. I was like, wow. Yeah, his dad actually did do it. You know what I mean? So
that's cool.
Yeah. Little tidbit there. So Rob treated me, I think, a bit differently than Brian did. I think as soon as he became a companion, I felt a more positive change. Like I was a lot more free to express myself, and he'd let me basically do plans without scrutiny. Rob definitely seemed to value my input as a companion, and it paid off too because we baptized 8 people in 3 months.
Wow.
I mean, I've got honestly, I saw so much success during this period. It was crazy. But I was, because I was a hard-working elder, I spoke to everybody as well, and I mean everybody. Or if not everybody, I might have missed 1 or 2 of them, but I spoke to as many people as I could. That was important to me to try and just do my part. So there was one, that was Alex, me and Elder Yori.
Wow.
That's Brother Clancy, who's a member. He baptised Alex. You might see me looking a bit stressed there. That's because Alex was an hour late for his baptism.
Oh, wow. That would be stressful.
Like, Alex, where have you been? He was, well, Alex, where have you been? It's like, oh, I just decided to walk from Liff Road to Bingham Terrace. That takes an hour. Like, why didn't you let me know? We've got people here. Anyway, that's another one. Linda Gaminsky. I baptised Linda. She's fantastic. Wonderful member of the church. There's a whole family here. That's Lee, Margot, I think her name is, and I've forgotten her name. Well, that's a family that I baptised whose name I've forgotten. I should look at my journals. Yeah. Oh yeah, Bronte. Bronte, that's her name. Bronte. So we baptised 4 people: Alex, Leon, Mary, Bronte, Lee, the mum, and Linda, and Kat as well. During our 3 months together, we were crazily successful, but you know, and it all came from because we got on. I think, you know what I mean, and we were focused on doing the work. And you know, I liked Rob quite a bit. We you know, we had a few tips, but we all do with pretty much all your companions, don't you? So yes, I think that large part of it was the leadership as well. The district leader also changed at the same time. So I got to give a shout out to Cody Rouchet, who I got along with great as well. I think he was another exemplary missionary, and like he was so positive about everything. It's just like I admire that, because I'd like to think I'm a bit of an optimist too. I like to try and be an optimist, and he was definitely optimistic. He was definitely, you know, a go-getter as well. And there's sort of like that sort of combination that I wanted to marry and into my own personality when I was becoming a missionary. You know what I mean? Because I felt maybe I was a bit either too focused or I'd be a bit angry, and you know what I mean, or I was like doing this to try and prove something or something like that. But I should have done it with love, and these guys definitely taught me that, basically. So I got a shout out to Joe Hawkins as well. He was also in that district. Yeah, he was formerly Andrew Bonin's companion, and he was a great guy as well. Got along with him superbly. Yeah, kind of miss him, to be honest with you. But then I was transferred to the Paisley Stake with Jason Hensley from Washington State. Was in the Renfrew area. Like that area was the polar opposite of where I just was. You know, I just come from where we've seen tons of baptisms and confirmations. Relationships with members were beginning to heal and doing great. You know, members would come on teachers and invite people to be baptized, and we're baptizing families and everything. I went from that area to an area where we didn't get any appointments at all, basically. It was one of the worst performing areas in the mission, I would assume, at that particular time. Perhaps one of the worst, yeah. And it was in Paisley. I don't know if you ever served in Paisley, guys.
I was in Johnston, and I think Johnston may have been part of that area. Is that right, or am I wrong in saying that?
Well, Johnston was in our district. Okay. Yeah, but they were next to our area, basically. So originally there was 3 sets of elders for the Paisley ward. So I served 6 weeks with Jason Hensley, and partway through we come back to you see that shock there. We come back to a "To Let" sign in the window. So there's me looking shocked. Yeah. So
your apartment had the "To Let" in it.
In our apartment with a big number on it while we were gone after. So it was like, gee, I wonder what's going to happen for moves. You know what I mean? I wonder if we're staying now.
Wow.
We kind of knew that it was closing down that particular area.
Goodness, what a way to find out.
Yeah, I know. We do. So, you know, when President Frederick rang us, we were like, really? No way. Yeah, we knew already. I think it was a bit lost on him, kind of thing, because I was being dead sarcastic. I was like, no way, really? Wow. I'm going, where?
Oh, goodness.
A bit lost on him, I think. But yeah. Paisley was a good ward. I just think I don't know if you'd heard about this, but Jason told me that a few months before I arrived in the area president called a joint meeting at the Paisley ward and the Johnston ward, and it was during a sacrament meeting where they sort of matter-of-factly informed the members of both wards that they'll be no longer using the Johnston building.
Oh my gosh.
Just like that, you had a lot of very, very upset members from both wards, particularly, now the former members of the Johnston ward. So it literally just closed down. It was still there as a building. They just decided to lock up and not use it anymore. So I come into that basically. So there's a bit of a rather sticky situation we were having to deal with regarding the members, as you can imagine. I could tell there was tension there basically from when I arrived. So let's say, so anyway, I was with Jason for 6 weeks, and then I was whitewashed into a huge new area. The mission decided to combine the Renfrew and Paisley areas. Now, both of them on their own were quite large areas. And so they just decided to combine both areas. Let's move one elder from here, one area from there. Let's combine them together. Technically, that's a whitewash, isn't it? So, and I got paired up with Brady Hammond from Boise, Idaho. And Brady was, still is. He was a great guy. I think he was one of the most humble people I think I've ever met. Like, without a doubt, he was a superb missionary. Honest, open. It feels like I could talk to anything about him, and I wasn't judged. You know what I mean? And that's important because you've got to have trust. Sometimes, and I felt like I was definitely trust him. So I got on really great with him too. He had a really good sense of humour. He was a wrestler, amateur wrestler, really good one too. I remember he challenged me once, and I was just like, nah, you're not going to have the better of me. So I just denied him every single time that he goes through. He's like, come on, let's wrestle. I was like, yeah, no, I don't feel like it, because I didn't want to get flipping absolutely creamed. I knew he was going to cream me. I just didn't want him to sort of know that he was creaming me. Anyway, during that time, I think I was hitting the main vein of the mission. I mean, the area wasn't doing so great performance-wise, but I wanted to maximise my potential. I wanted to be at my best at all times. I think, looking back with Brady, I think if I had a regret, I was probably overreaching sometimes and probably doing things that, we should have done as a companionship. I was just taking the responsibility for and doing. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to impress people, you know what I mean? And I wanted to do a good job. I remember President Frederick at that particular time, he would teach, how hot is your flame? I don't know if that was ever a theme of your mission, but he'd have like pictures of a Bunsen burner, an old Bunsen burner from science class and stuff like that. And he would say, it's just like, how hot is your flame? And then he'd have a flame where it was like a lot of oxygen getting in, and it'd like, yeah, that's a hot flame. And then and then he'd close it. I was in the other way around, excuse me, So it was closed, and he'd open, he'd let more air in. And obviously he'd get hotter and hotter and hotter until it was white hot, basically. And this is, where are you basically on this list? And I've used that lesson quite a bit in my life, to measure where I am and what I'm doing. How hot is my flame? Do I have the desire to do things? I think it's a great life lesson in general, but it really sort of like, I wanted to be that white hot flame, you know what I mean? I wanted to really push it as hard as I could, you know what I mean? I think Brady had a bit of a tough time maybe dealing with that, and I apologise if it was a bit sort of like stubborn, or if it was maybe probably a bit not uncaring back, but I just definitely wanted to take the lead. I wanted to show the district leader, at the time that I could do all this stuff, and I wanted to prove to leadership that I could do it as well, because I felt like I had a lot to give in that respect. I'd say at that time, stress was definitely getting to me, mainly because I was ill a lot during that particular time. So during this time, I don't know if you remember the swine flu epidemic, like 2009. Yep. That was rife. When I was serving in Paisley with Elder Hammond, that was probably when it was at its peak. And a few people in the mission had caught it and, were sick a few weeks, at the time. It's a serious thing. Anyway, I remember one morning I woke up and I got changed and studied, and I sneezed constantly. non-stop through personal study and companionship study. So that was 2 hours. I just was like, chew, 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 chew.
Oh my gosh.
Just like no breaks. I wanted to die.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible. I think, eventually when I got to take a breath, I was like there, puffy eyed. I was just like looking at it, like crying. I was just like, "Can I go see a doctor?" Like Brady was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, probably.
It's like, "Yeah, you can." Anyway, so I rang the mission home in between sneezing, and I got what I got. I was expecting to see a GP. Now, I'd not really been sick before this on my mission. I was expecting here in England or in Scotland or the UK, you go and see a GP, don't you? You book an appointment and go and see them. We didn't have a GP. We had a mission doctor that I'd never heard from. I remember seeing him in the MTC. Didn't really hear of anything from him since then. What I got was just go to A&E. An accident and emergency, basically. So I was like, wait a minute, I thought I should be going to a GP. No elder Cain, don't go to a GP, go to A&E. I was like, yeah, to this day, I still don't know why I was asked to do that, to be honest with you. In fact, anytime I needed medical attention throughout my mission, and I needed it a few times, I was advised to go to A&E. That was the same, when I got my rhinoplasty, when I got my nose broken by that guy, that lovely gentleman who, headbutted me in the face. I was like,
isn't it called a Glasgow kiss?
It was called a Glasgow kiss, yeah.
You're one of few that got one of those.
Yeah, I've worn it as a badge of honor.
Sorry, I digress. Carry on.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's an interesting story, right? I mean, my question was during this time, why couldn't I see a GP? Because it felt like it was just odd for me that I wasn't able to go and see one. Anyway, I went to A&E. And obviously, as I said, swine flu was rife. It was all in all the papers. You couldn't escape it, basically. I went to Royal Alexandra Hospital in Paisley. I told them my symptoms, and they told me to wait inside this isolated room that was covered in these, this transparent sort of like thing. I was like this, and then this doctor came out in this contamination suit. Looked like. Have you ever seen E.T.?
Yeah.
You ever seen E.T. when he's like when they're like the China ways in that refrigerator and those guys like in those suits? That's what he came out. That's what he came out in, and I was really scared. I remember taking the time. I was just like, "What's going to happen to me? I was like, my mind was rushing. But they did a blood test. They told me to rest. You know what I mean? But when they told me to rest, I'd rest for a day. I'd start to feel a bit better again, and then I'd go out proselyting. And after a day, I'd sort of like my symptoms kind of came back. So it was like this wasn't going away without a fight. This thing, and I was pretty ill. I eventually rang the mission home and said, "Look, one day is not going to cut it. I'm going to need to take several days off here to properly recover." So I spent 3 days, straight days, fighting this illness off. I mean, it must have been hell on earth for Brady, because he was sat around the flat, waiting for me to get better, basically, which must have been an exercise in patience beyond my understanding. But he did it. So I'm really grateful that he did do that. You know what I mean? He didn't ask to go on exchanges. He just sat there and read the. I mean, can you imagine how boring it is for a missionary who can't go out, just sat around in the flat all day, just reading the scriptures or reading the ensign or whatever, or the Leahona or whatever. So eventually, I recovered. The condition started improving. I got news that it wasn't swine flu in the end, but it made me really ill. So I don't know what it was, but anyway, Brady left, and this was the news that President and Sister Frederick went home. They were replaced by President and Sister Griffiths, who I think had a bit of a different approach to President Frederick, which I was honestly glad, because I didn't like I felt President Frederick's approach was a bit militant. You know what I mean? Like, I can appreciate, obviously, he wanted the best out of his elders and he cared for them, but I don't think it was an approach that sort of like sat well with me. But, you know, obviously, because it's the mission culture, you're trying to improve and stuff like that. You're seen as like something that you have to take on board. You either sink or swim, either step up or stand aside, basically. And that was very much the culture of the mission, I felt. So it changed with President Sister Griffiths from a much less numbers orientated kind of endeavor, and it was more about people and more about, you know, what their needs are, about attending to the one, as President Griffiths used to call it. I liked him as a person. I felt he was a breath of fresh air to the mission, and I felt like finally we were focused on people over numbers, and because that was a bit of a gripe with me, to be honest with you. I felt like we were missing the mark, we were missing the point, sometimes chasing these numbers, and I understand that numbers equal, you know, people, but I think we were looking too much at numbers rather than, no, this number has a name attached to it, it has a life. There wasn't much care, I felt, with respect to that. Anyway, so missionaries with issues was sort of no longer seen as a problem, I think, but more of a person. And I think that's a much more Christian approach to leadership, and I liked it. So I was with Brady for 3 months, and then I had another companion, Cade Lubeck, who took Brady's place, and we were serving in the same area in Paisley still. I didn't really get on with Cade. He was a good missionary and everything, but we just didn't get on. You know what I mean? And that might have been because I was prideful or whatever you want to call it, but we just weren't on the same page at all, really. You know, I think we tolerated each other to an extent. We barely put up with each other, and so I apologise on my part. Yeah, to Cade, if you know, but I think it takes two to tango in some instances. You know what I mean? So I think it was all just me. So we sat together for 3 months, and I remember asking President Griffiths after those 3 months for us to be separated, basically, because, you know, I just feel like it didn't feel good at all being around him, serving with him, and, you know, he kept me so mad at times. You know what I mean? And, you know, I thought it was just not good. We weren't compatible, I don't think, but we put up with each other because that was just what we were called to do. Anyway, thankfully, President Griffiths listened, and I was moved out of there over to the Dumbarton area, back into Glasgow Stake, and I was in another driving area with a new companion, Matthew Hardwick, who was the second companion from Wolverhampton that I had. They're another one with a rubbish football team. I mean, it's terrible, really. I mean, it's appalling. And I'd let him know this. He was a massive Wolverhampton Wanderers supporter. So I'd constantly sort of like tease him about, you know, how his team were, and still are, just you know, basically rubbish. Can't score a goal to save the life, sort of thing. Not like the mighty Man City. Anyway, he was just scoring goals left, right, and centre, guys. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I followed up training with Matthew. I wanted to be at my absolute best with him. It was a constant theme throughout my mission. Was like, this is about me. This is about me performing. This is about how I can improve and stuff like that. It was very much like the frame of the mind in the mission. So I think it got to me at that particular point. I wanted to show him, Matthew, how, because I was just following up training, and I wanted to be a good example to him. I'd never trained before, so I wanted to show him how hard I could work. So the first couple of days, whilst we were in a companionship together, I was working at 100 miles an hour. You know, I was talking to everybody, inviting everyone to be baptized. I wanted to be at my best. You know what I mean? I think most of my companions, if you ever have them on, would tell you that I talk to a lot of people, you know, via street contacting, and I was quite good in it to an extent too. You know what I mean? I like that aspect of it. But I just went into overdrive when I moved it to Dumbarton. I think Matthew just coming out maybe might have struggled with that. So he'd previously been trained by Craig Day, who had been, I think, maybe had a bit of a different approach to me. I think Craig was a bit more sort of like happy-go-lucky, whereas I was at that time of mission all-out nuclear war. I've got to get all this stuff done. You know what I mean? I felt like I was being really effective, and I wanted to just maximize my time. You know what I mean? I really felt that was important to do. Might have been to my detriment, unfortunately, and maybe companionships might have suffered because I had that attitude. But it was very much an attitude that came from President Frederick and all the monks there, and I felt like that's how I was to become a good missionary. So in Dumbarton, I went a bit mental for the first few days, thinking I was setting a good example. I think it nearly broke Matthew. I remember one day Matthew, he had enough of maybe the way that I was being or whatever. He calls Craig Day directly. He was the zone. He'd been changed to the zone leader of our state, basically, of the Glasgow area, sort of thing, and just complains directly to him. And obviously, because it might have been a bit too much for him, or I think he preferred him as a companion over me, and I don't blame him. But Craig then talks to me, and because obviously he was my zone leader, and tells me that I basically need to slow down, and I need to listen to Matthew more, and I need to take on his advice, and I need to treat him like a companionship, because it wasn't about me. It was a bit of a hard lesson for me to learn that, but he was right. I think it was at that time I felt like I was being told to slow down rather than for him to step up, kind of thing. I mean, if I get it though, I mean, I was going mental. So apologies to you, Matthew, if you're listening. Nice guy, really good teacher as well. Really effective, good at planning as well from a really early point of his mission as well. He had a lot of good aspects to his character and good work ethic as well. And he was a funny guy as well. I got on with him. Once we got past that, I think we got on with each other. In fact, after my mission, he was actually at an event, a church event that I was DJing at, and he came up to me and we caught up. It was great. You know what I mean? It's nice. Like rolling back the years and stuff like that. But he's a great guy. He's got a kid now. He's been married in Temple. Fantastic. I'm happy for him. Doesn't live too far away from me, but he's a nice guy. I like to keep in contact with him. So we were, as I say, we were in Dumbarton. The ward there, I think, were a little less cooperative, shall we say, with missionaries. I think they've had a couple of bad experiences in the past with missionaries baptizing too quickly and not maybe doing it in the right way. The bishop there, Bishop Gallagher, I think probably saw me as one of those missionaries. That would like be all about baptisms and not attending to the one and all that sort of stuff. I think he may have saw me as a bit of a problem. I maybe thought my blood and thunder approach was not suited to his ward and his members. So he actually asked for me to be transferred out of that area, but not before we baptised and confirmed young Paul, a 9-year-old who had been teaching. That was nice. That was a miracle baptism, that one, because we didn't have any of the support of the ward whatsoever. There's little Paul and Elder Hardwick and myself posing like missionaries of the Lord there. You know what I mean? To this day, I think it was a miracle that we even got to happen. Everything went wrong on the day. To me, it just seemed like the ward was not supportive of the missionaries' efforts at all to bring people into the church and baptise. The bishop thought could have done a bit more to help us. I think he would be naysaying rather than trying to be positive about it, But it wasn't very helpful. So rather than approach our investigators, he was sort of like moan that they smelled smoke, or like have they been drinking. I was just like,
oh dear,
really, you're the bishop of this ward, and you're like acting like that. Goodness. Anyway, Anyway, I didn't like that ward. So the baptism definitely felt like a success story. And I was super proud of our efforts in finding young Paul. I was oh yeah, I've got an interesting story about a P day as well. Now, don't be shocked here. I'm going to show you this. Okay, so for one P day, we had a member called Joe, and he told us about this activity called ferreting. I don't know if you've heard of ferreting at all.
No.
Okay, so ferreting, guys.
Jack, did you say yes?
Yeah, hunting, right? With ferrets?
It is hunting. Yeah, sorry, you've heard of it, Jack?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's us ferreting on P Day. Me and Matthew. So we went with a member. I know, yeah, you're probably thinking, what an apostate.
I think that's awesome.
I didn't think it was apostate. I think we were helping the farmer get rid of some pests. I thought it was just I'm never going to get to do this ever again. So I was just like, yeah, we'll go. We went with a member, and he put nose and nets over a burrow, sent a ferret down, and when a rabbit jumped out, he jumped on it and broke its neck. It's like, what a great activity. So I feel like I was living on the edge there. Maybe that's probably the most edgiest thing that I did on a mission. Probably I've since was told like, you were out of order to do that, or maybe you should have thought about it a bit more. Maybe so, but I'm sorry if that's the case. Well, I did enjoy myself. So during that time when I was with Matthew, I was actually diagnosed with clinical depression by a doctor because I've been showing signs of low mood and just general just I couldn't find joy in things anymore. I don't know if you've depression's a serious mental illness. And I was given the highest dose of medication for it by this doctor. I mean, I'm happy to say it now, but I had a mental breakdown during that particular time, where I'd just randomly feel really down and start crying uncontrollably for reasons I just don't know. I can't explain it. It's just it'd come out of the blue and it'd hit me like a truck, and I'd start crying for like 30-40 minutes at a time, and I'd carry that with me for the next 4 to 5 years. And I made a recovery afterwards, but it's a dark time for me mentally, because it felt like I was being persecuted, by the ward for wanting to do the right thing. I was starting to question what the right thing was. I didn't think I knew what it was anymore, because in my mind I was doing the right thing and I was being told off for it, or chastised, or rebuked for it. I was so confused at that particular time. I just didn't know what the right thing to do was anymore. So I started to question everything. My big questions, like, it's like bigger morality issues. What is good? What is bad? Like, I was trying to sort this all out in my head. So it was a tough time for me at that particular time to deal with. But anyway, it's just something that I dealt with on my mission. And I think many people would have had to go through what I had to go through, and with respect to that. But it happened smack bang in the middle of my mission. But I am no quitter, guys. I am out there to finish my mission, and I'm not a quitter. No matter how hard things got, I made a promise that I would do a good job and that I'd finish. And I was willing to do that. So anyway, I spent 3 months with Matthew Hardwick, and then I moved on to what would be my final area, where they would put me out to pasture in the air ward. You know what I mean? Hey, we're going to move you to a lovely area. It's like hospice for a mission, isn't it?
Oh, jeez.
But I went to the air ward, and now I'd been on holiday in air before. I love it. I thought but I never met all the ward members. I heard so much about them: the Sharkies, the Geladis. The list goes on, and the names escape me at this moment in time. But there's so many faithful, wonderful people there that were in the ward that were just so warm and caring. They treated you like you were one of theirs. And that's exactly what I needed, being, suffering with what I was suffering through. So that was the right move to put me there, I felt. They were lovely members, and there was lots of opportunities to teach. I even liked the area, even had a beach that wasn't horrible. So it was great. I moved there with Bjorn Anderson, who was my companion when I moved there from Dumbarton. He was from Sweden. He was a really sweet guy. But I think because I was going through what I was going through, I think he might have had a bit of it really hit me hard at that point. I think he might have struggled. I think I don't know, I didn't really have much empathy, unfortunately, at that time, because I was just really struggling with a lot of things. I remember during one companionship inventory, I actually brought into tears because I just was angry at everything. Nothing would make sense to me. You know what I mean? I was out there on my mission trying to do the right thing, and no matter what I did, it seemed like I was doing the wrong thing, or I wasn't right in what I was feeling. There'd been times on my mission where I knew, I was convinced what I was doing was the right thing, and then I get chastised for it or pulled up about it and ended up being the wrong thing. I mean, that's why I struggled, because I was convinced that I was doing the right thing, but I was told afterwards that I wasn't. So it didn't make an awful lot of sense to me. Looking back, I might have lost a bit of faith at that particular time. But there was no way on earth, guys, that I was going to go home. I was going to complete my mission, and return with honour. Because by this point, I was out for 20 months. You know what I mean? I only had 4 months to go. You know what I mean? I might as well finish it. I felt like a lot of things were transpiring against me at that time. Umberto Gilardi was the bishop, and I remember he saw that I was struggling during sacrament meeting, because usually missionaries go up to people and speak to everyone. I wasn't doing that. I was kind of sitting to one side, just kind of just like not wanting to speak to people. And he noticed this, and he pulled me into his office. And he's a very caring person. I don't know if you can ever come across him. He's a great guy, really is. I remember he pulled me into his office, and he could see that I was struggling, wanted to help. So he was telling me, man to man, that I was worth something, that I was an amazing missionary. I was valued by him. I was valued by this ward. I was, and that, what you've done or may have done in the past, it shouldn't affect your mood, kind of thing, or how you're feeling. He tried, but I think, it's trying to reach someone who you can't get reached to at that particular time. You know what I mean? It's a real struggle. I appreciate it. What he tried to do, and I had a lot of members that tried to help me through at the Air Ward, tried to help me through that for the last couple of months. It didn't affect my work, though. I can assure you of that. My work did not change. I was still determined to succeed and to contact people. I just felt like the last part of my mission was probably one of the hardest ones, just because I was suffering with what I was suffering with. So I was with Bjorn Anderson for 3 months. And then I moved and I stayed in there for my last 6 weeks with Tanner Madsen, who's from Salt Lake City, Utah. So during that time, we baptized Davina and Robert. They were married in the church. They were married at church first. I had to plan a wedding. I've never planned a wedding before.
Wow.
So I had to plan a wedding, because obviously they were living together, but they agreed, to get married if they could get baptized. And so that's what happened. Basically, I was his best man.
Cool.
I was his best man. I actually asked President Griffiths at that time. I was like, can I be his best man? He's asked me to be best man. He's like, yeah, sure. I was like, can I wear a pink tie? I just looked at him there. He's like, what? I was like, well, everyone else is wearing pink ties. It's a pink theme, you know what I mean? I just wanted to get that one in before the end of the mission, and then I got promotion. Another thing as well, we weren't allowed to wear purple and pink ties, were we? But the mission tie was purple anyway. It is, isn't it? It is. It's like green and purple. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, Davina and Robert were married and then baptized and confirmed, both of them. This is during my last moves. Mary McCulloch as well, who was in her 90s, and was it was difficult to communicate with. But she's one of those for years and years and years. She had a sister who was an active member of the church, but she, for years, even though she'd have the missionaries round, she refused to get baptized. And it felt, for me, holding on to the very end of my mission was for Mary, because I felt like all the lessons and all the experiences and all the trials and with teaching and learning and getting chastised and waking up early and getting ill and all this sort of stuff eventually came to a head when I invited her to be baptized, and she said yes. And one of my favourite memories of my entire mission was seeing the members of Air Ward baptize Mary. She was in a chair, and she had it lowered down by two priesthood holders, basically. But man, kind of felt it was all worth it just to see that happen. Yeah. It was great to see, and that's absolute favourite thing that happened on my mission was that. Basically, there's a lot of great stuff that happened when I was out there, but I'll always treasure that one memory. Anyway, completed my mission 3rd of July 2010. Just as it was about to return into the Scotland Island mission, so as the last of the last of the Mohicans, last of the Scotland Edinburgh mission, last of the Scotland Edinburgh mission. Yeah. It got translated like the City of Enoch. So yeah, my parents picked me up from the mission home, and I got to go on exchanges with my dad. On my street, contacted someone in the streets of Edinburgh. I didn't serve in Edinburgh my entire mission. I always wanted to serve there. So that's another nice memory. When we went on exchanges, went with my dad on the street, contacted someone, invited him to baptize, invited us to be baptized. He's like, I get to, It's like, that's it. What a way to wrap it up,
Yeah, gave your dad a little bit of the Scottish experience there too. Then,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, that was a nice little memory that I remember. Him bearing testimony, and like me going on exchanges with him. So, and then I was with him up until I got released and went back down to Manchester. So that's that.
Great. quite the saga you've taken us on over those 2 years. We really appreciate it, man.
It's no Lord of the Rings, but it's up there. There's no Dark Lord. There's no mountain at the end, but well, there is a mountain. Excuse me, Arthur C.
Yeah,
That's right.
At the start and the finish. So
that's right. So I feel proud of my efforts. I have a couple of regrets, more so to do with interpersonal relationships. I just want to say to any of my old companions that might be listening, I am sorry that I was egg-headed. I am the way I am. I am how God made me. So I hope to seek forgiveness, and hopefully He won't judge you. I won't judge you for any injustices done to me either. For me, that's dead and buried, and I don't hold any grudges against you. So I wish you all well as well, every single one of you, and I'd like to hear from you as well. So don't be a stranger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great segue into truly, if there's anyone else apart from your companions who you'd like to hear from, is there anyone on like the horizons that you'd be like, hey, if I don't hear from that person, I'll be shocked?
If I don't hear from, I'd like to hear from Brady Hammond. Brady's like he's a really nice guy. I got along with him. He's got some really funny stories. So Alan Slater as well, just because he's a character. He's a real character. And I think if I could say one more, it would be Matthew Hardwick.
Okay.
So shout out to all of you. Hope you're all doing well. And thank you for having me on, guys. It's sorry, it might have been taking a bit of a long and serious tone in some instances, but I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I genuinely do. It feels like it gives me a sense of closure, So thank you for that.
we want everybody to come on who served in Scotland. Like, you're our brother because we lived and served in that land. You know, regardless of what transpired then or now or whatever, we've been there, done that. So, and the things you've overcome as well personally, like, that's amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that too. Like, we all have struggles at times in our lives, and we need to hear those stories of people making it to the other side. So really appreciate it.
Thank you for saying so, and I appreciate you listening as well. You know, I just felt as if it was important to be honest, and more than anything on this podcast. So I felt hopefully it'll do some good. And you guys are doing a great job anyway. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it. It's great. So yeah.
No, I'm going to echo what Jack said too. We love you, David. We're so grateful that you were able to come on and share your experience in Scotland, just as we all had experiences, some good, some bad. But, you know, the thing that's been so interesting for Jack and I, listening to these conversations from, you know, era missionaries beyond even myself, and I feel like I'm the baby of the group sometimes, but nonetheless, like there was a situation that changed the mission, like right after I went home, that truly affected the entire culture of what Scotland was when you got there. And you ultimately had to try and fix some of those things, even though there was irreparable damage in some of these areas. And so kudos to you for sticking through it, because Jack and I have reflected on it. I don't think we would have made it. I mean, look, he's wearing a pink tie right now. But yeah, and if you still have contact with any of your previous companions, I mean, I'll be more than happy to reach out to those that you've mentioned. But beyond that, anyone that you know of that you could get us in contact with, certainly refer them to the 51spylaw.com website. They can email us, S.E.M podcast at 51spylaw.com. You know, any way that we can get in contact, we would love to have anybody on here to share their story. And we've mentioned it before. I think Zach Lavelle was in your MTC group.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Great guy. Yeah.
He's coming on as we're speaking next week. And ultimately, like, there's just so many pieces to this giant puzzle that truly is the Scotland Edinburgh Mission. And we appreciate you coming on and sharing your bit to it. So thank you.
Thank you. It's lovely to speak to you guys, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right, David. We'll say goodnight to you. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye now.